Hi, everyone. I've got to say, I've been looking forward to this interview all day. This is Damian Hall, and we spoke to Damian a couple of weeks ago before he was going for his attempt on the fastest known time along the Pennine Way. And since then, he's smashed that fastest known time, and he's agreed to join us for a little chat to talk all about it. And it looks like he might be joining us from in bed. Have you managed to get out of bed since the?
I've been in bed ever since 7 or 8 days. No, it's I've got an office space around the corner, but the kids are around and they're being quite noisy. So I just snuck into the bedroom because I thought it's going to be quieter. But yeah, I appreciate it. Looks like I've been quite lazy.
No, I'm sure you deserve a bit of sleep time after that. So we're 7 or 8 days post now. How is the recovery?
Yeah, I never like to kind of, declare, yes, I'm recovered, because so often when you do that, you feel a bit rubbish the next day or something. But yeah, I feel like I'm making good progress. Definitely the first few days. Yeah, I was pretty wrecked, as you might imagine. A lot of kind of swelling in the lower limbs, and I was getting night sweats as well, which I've had once or twice before, which I don't know if you've had, but it's pretty disgusting. You wake up in the middle of the night and everything's wet, and yeah, it doesn't make you very popular with the wife. That did happen for 3, 4, maybe even 5 nights. That was pretty gross.
What do you put that down to, out of interest?
I believe it is a message as simply an overtraining. Obviously, it's not training, but you've overstressed your body. I don't really understand the sort of smaller mechanics of it, but it's definitely your body going, we're a bit stressed here. You've really stressed us, because I guess I had, as well as the effort of my run, I went through 2 nights and I only had 40 minutes sleep in total. So, that's not healthy. No. So although I'm joking about it, I'm pretty respectful of that stuff now. And I have read that, going even without 1 night's sleep is like a mild concussion, actually. So you do have to be quite careful with that stuff. I know I'm a bit guilty of kind of almost glamorizing it sometimes, but afterwards I rest hard. You do have to be careful. But yeah, I feel I'm getting there. It's been fun, having a few more interviews than normal, and even went on BBC Breakfast Television, which was quite a surprise and quite surreal. But yeah, it's been nice. It's flattering that so many people are interested. So it's I'm having a very nice time, really. I think I'm nearly recovered.
No, it's awesome. We've been following all of the coverage, and it's been lovely to see it all blow up like that, because quite often in the normal run of things, these big FKTs and things have gone under the radar. But I think a combination of the coronavirus lockdown, lack of races, the timing, everything, it's all kind of come together nicely to make it the centre of attention. So do you feel like you benefited from that scenario?
Yes. I mean, there was kind of a story in The Guardian and the BBC, and I think, there is a lack of sport. Quite a few sports aren't on, or I guess the football was just about finished, wasn't it? Well, I had a nice surprise because I'm an Arsenal fan. So in the same week as I got to see us win the FA Cup again. So I think there's a lack of sport going on, and then within the running world, there are no races. So things are being, I guess, celebrated or covered more than normal. But without sounding a bit naff, hopefully if that can inspire people to be more active, then great. Hopefully, hopefully I'm not putting people off. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, great. I wanted to pick up on that, the point that you've made actually about the lack of sleep during the thing, because so tell people who don't know how many days or hours you were moving for in total.
Yeah, so it was pretty much kind of 2.5 days, 61 hours and 35 minutes. So yeah, I started at 6 a.m. And went all the way through the first day and night, which I guess I have done a few times. So I wasn't too uncomfortable doing that, but not, into that second day, I started to feel like maybe a power nap would be useful. And they can be quite effective. I've used them before. Sometimes just 10 or 15 minutes can reboot you for a few hours. It almost kind of tricks the brain into thinking it's had a better sleep. So I did do one then, and then later on that day, I lay down again for 15 minutes in my crew van. But actually, I didn't sleep that time for whatever reason. And I thought, let's not waste time. Let's get on. But later that night, about 8 or 9, I did try again, and I lay down for like 45 minutes, but slept maybe for about 30, 35. So I think I slept for 40 minutes in total, I suppose, over 2 days, 2.5 days and 2 nights. So, but to put it in a bit of context, the previous record holder, the guy who held it for 31 years, he didn't sleep at all.
Really?
But then the guy John Kelly, who broke the record 8 days before me, he actually slept for 2 hours. So there's a fair bit of variation in what you could do in a way. And it is hard to judge. It's hard to judge, hard to know if you've got it right, hard to judge whether it's time to push through it or time to take a power nap. But that was probably our biggest challenge, was the sleep deprivation and just feeling very tired and not wanting to carry on running, really.
Can I ask you, with the sleep deprivation, because I've not done any events that have surpassed 24 hours. The longest event I've ever done was a 20-hour race, which was actually the Devizes to Westminster kayaking race, which goes down it goes not far from you, actually, Bradford on Avon sort of way down, and it goes down to Devizes, and then it goes along the canal and then onto the River Thames and finishes at Westminster Bridge. And about sort of 15, 16 hours into that, we were in the middle of the night, and I was obviously getting tired, and it's all everything's silhouetted. And I started seeing these, I kept seeing people by the riverside, like fishermen and other stuff. And then I'd paddle past, and actually it was a tree stump. And then I'd realised that I wouldn't go so far as to say full on hallucinating, but I kept convincing myself that I was seeing stuff, like weird things. Did you have any of that? Would you have any of those experiences?
Yeah, and unfortunately, in a way, on this time I didn't. But previously, the first time I did something like this which was when I first did the spine race, which, for those who don't know, it is on the Pennine Way, but it's in winter. Yeah. And it was a similar thing where it's 3 or 4 nights there and very little sleep. And I did get some vivid hallucinations then, and I thought someone was on a hillside near me setting off some red Chinese lanterns for me to follow in. And of course I followed those lanterns, and it took me wildly off course. I was quite lost. But then after that, I remember, even in the daylight, I remember stones sort of turning into people. I think I just was desperate to see someone because I've been on my own for so long. So I kept thinking I saw people up ahead, and there never was, or stones turning into maybe snakes and stuff. And it sounds a bit sinister, but actually it didn't feel that way at all. It felt, just very strange, I suppose. But I almost feel like you have that breakthrough, and this is kind of anecdotal rather than scientific, but maybe once you've had those strong hallucinations, it's less like, I don't know, for me anyway, it's less likely I'll get them. I've hardly had any since then. So maybe my body's just almost learnt a bit of how to deal with it, but I'm not sure. It's a fascinating side of things.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of interesting stuff with how you learn about these really long events, because clearly not many people do that many of them. It's just not physically possible, is it? So there's not a lot of research or data on what happens to people, but it does seem to be, from the athletes that I've talked to that have done lots of multi-day stuff, is you do learn a lot of coping methodologies for what your body goes through in these crazy experiences. So I wanted to dive in and ask you about something which is of deep interest to us, which is the nutrition and hydration, and what your sort of strategy was there, and what the mainstays of what you were eating and drinking throughout the challenge, and how that changed over the 2.5 days.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was great to come and see you guys. Less than a week beforehand, wasn't it? And get a proper kind of sweat test to have a clearer idea of how many electrolytes and how much liquid I needed to get in, because I've like yourself, I've suffered with cramp in the past. Now I was quite thankful. The temperatures were pretty kind to me. They were in the kind of 10 to 15, which for me is pretty much perfect actually for running. It was overcast a lot of the time. But it made me, I preloaded, I made sure I got some electrolytes in, I think a little bit the night before and definitely in the morning, which I hadn't done previously. And I made sure, there were more electrolytes going into my soft flasks than in the past. And I do feel like that side of things went more smoothly, especially the drinking. Now I would mix up drinks quite a bit, so I can never be too precise. So I would, sometimes have Coca-Cola, although I'd try and keep that to night times for the extra caffeine. And sometimes sort of, fruit juice and maybe even a bit of chocolate milk sometimes. So there's a bit of a mixture there. But I felt like, at the very least, I was thinking I need more electrolytes than I used to have. And didn't have any twinges of cramp or anything. It did get warm on the third day, and that is probably when your muscles are more worn out, so they're probably more susceptible. I'm only guessing here, but more susceptible to spasming or complaining. And I had very little issues there, or pretty much none, I don't think. And food-wise, it was quite interesting. Despite my experience level, I still ended up, not necessarily eating the stuff I thought I might. The first day started quite the conventional stuff of kind of bananas and flapjacks. And my crew bought me chips a couple of times, nice and salty. That was good fun. At one point, they got mixed up with a chocolate brownie, and actually that went down really nicely. But then, I had some soups during the night. That was a sort of tactic, and that was nice. But actually, over time, you just start to go off the food. Really, just the idea of eating in your mouth is quite pretty gross place. But someone saved me. They passed me they gave me their avocado and hummus sandwich, and actually straight away I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's amazing! I need more of them." So when I next saw my crew, I probably quite rudely said, "I need these," and they had to go off shopping and get some avocados, which is all very middle class, I suppose. But that combination, actually, for the rest of the day, I think, or maybe even 24 hours, was perfect for me. And now I think about it, my body was probably craving some protein, in the hummus, and then avocado. It's got fat, that's fats. So, and then the bread is carbs. So actually, it's a really good combination. Nice texture as well. Goes down quite smoothly. So actually, I'm gonna, I think I'll start my next race with a pile of sandwiches of that nature.
Avocado, hummus, and bread. That sounds good. And on that note, you mentioned your crew, and I'm sure there's a huge crew that goes into a logistical event like this. Leapfrogging you and feeding you along the route and all the rest of it. With sort of you going on for so long, being so sleep deprived, being so low blood sugar at times, I'm sure. Did you sort of lose your rag with anyone at any point in your attempt, or did you keep it all pleasant?
I've been told that I was crotchety once. So I believe people tell me, there's probably someone out there calling me a liar when I say this, but I believe when I get really tired, I just get pretty quiet and kind of sullen. But I was told I did get crotchety. I was actually quite determined to clean my teeth quite regularly. This is all a bit gross, but I didn't tell my crew when my toothbrush was, so that isn't very helpful for them. So, but on the second night, which was always going to be the most difficult time, I think, in the middle of that second night, I sort of arrived at the van and said, "I want to clean my teeth." And one of the crew said, "Where's your toothbrush?" And I apparently I said, "In my bag," quite a grumpy way. And of course, I had several bags. It was a really unhelpful thing to say. But they sort of tiptoed off and went scurrying through the bags. And I think I came to help them, or at least complain at them. But they said that was the one time I was kind of crotchety, and that they were a little bit concerned for me about whether I'd sort of gone too far over the edge. But I don't think I lost my temper with anyone. It would be incredibly ungrateful if I had. But also, I don't like coffee, which is a bit of a shame, really. But Nikki Spinks was there crewing for me a couple of times, pacing me. And she persuaded me during that spell when I was struggling against sleep deprivation. She persuaded me to eat a coffee bean, telling me it doesn't really taste like coffee. And it was absolutely disgusting. And I was spitting it out and complaining at her for that. So that was probably my wilder moments, I suppose. So if they're your wildest moments, I guess things have gone fairly well, I suppose.
Definitely, yeah. It sounds like you were very, very considerate to all those lovely people.
Well, I hope it was, and apologies I wasn't.
So prior to the event, we talked a little bit about this because pacing is a big. I'm really interested in pacing. I think partly because as an athlete, when I was a youngster, like a lot of young athletes, I was pretty bad at pacing. But I think it was something that I got pretty good at later in my career, and I think it helped me to occasionally punch above my weight in some of the longer events that I did, because I learned how to kind of meter the effort out. And I know that when you and I talked about John's attempt, 8 days before, he had clearly, done the whole go out hard and hang on type mentality, which I always kind of find it worked. He beat the record, but at one point he was a long way up on the record, and he ended up losing a lot of time later on. And I always sort of view those kind of pacing strategies as kind of part heroic, because I'm always impressed when someone's willing to throw down and go hard, but also a little bit foolhardy, because quite often they are a high risk strategy, and you seem to have a very different approach. And can you tell us about how you approach your planning for pacing?
Well, I must admit, I don't know if it went quite how I planned it, but I think I was telling everyone in the week or so beforehand, I was telling anyone who would listen, including yourself, and it was part of my own strategy, was to tell people, so it just sort of confirms it in your head what you're trying to do. I was trying to be a lot more considered, a bit more conservative, and I was always trying to prioritize sort of day 2 and hopefully night 2 as the time where you're not necessarily running more strongly, but you don't want to be running too badly, too slowly there. So I always thought of a more measured approach, holding back a bit early on, and trying to come through, in a more consistent sort of pacing. I mean, you're always going to just get a bit slower towards the end. That's almost always going to happen. So I think you've got to allow for that. But I didn't quite follow that, in that I just felt so good early on. That there was part of me thinking kind of like, I feel comfortable. I was joking with the people around me and stuff. We were swapping the bad dad jokes and so on, just to almost to make sure that I was comfortable. And I kept sort of thinking, well, okay, I feel great. Nothing feels difficult. I'm not pushing. I'm just going with it. I'm running on feel. Don't necessarily limit yourself if it's going well. So I think by the end of that 24 hours, I think I was about that first 24 hours. I think I was about 3 hours up, if I'm right. And at one stage, I even got to nearly 4 hours up. But at that stage, I really did need a sleep, and that's when I had the 45-minute sleep. And that I took some advice from a very experienced runner, because I was getting a bit kind of muddle-headed and a bit. I think the phrase I used, that I felt a bit goosed, and I couldn't really pinpoint it, as to what. And she said, I reckon you should try and have a decent sleep now, and then you've still got 3 hours, and that's brilliant if you can finish with 3 hours. And that is kind of what happened. So I don't think I judged it. I don't think I actually executed it quite as well as I talked about it in beforehand, but it still turned out all right. And I must admit, actually, I did relax a bit too much in the kind of penultimate leg. So sort of the afternoon of the final day, there was a combination of factors. It got a bit warmer. I probably neglected nutrition a little bit. There was a little bit of a celebratory atmosphere. I was, lots of strangers were coming out to see me, which was wonderful. But after a while, they're telling you well done and congratulations, and you almost start to think, well, I've done the hard work. And then I got to the last crew point, and I'd actually lost half an hour in that last section of 2 or 3 hours. But it was like, oh my God, I'm well under 3 hours. Like, I'm not going to make 3 hours at the moment. Not going to make 3 hours off the record. So we did work pretty hard in that last 3 hours to get the 3 hour cushion back. Because I guess in the last few hours, it was more about, okay, well, other people are going to come for this record, whether it's next week or next year. Let's make sure I've given everything, I suppose. And so I mean, probably in the films, I'm moving at quite a pathetic pace, but it felt fast. It was hard work to work that hard. It didn't go quite as smooth, but these things never go totally smoothly. And ultimately, it worked. I got the result I wanted. To have a 3 hour cut 3 hours off the record, I'm thrilled with, to be honest. All part of the adventure.
Definitely tremendous achievement, and you've actually segued me into what was going to be my final question perfectly there, by mentioning someone who might follow you to try and take the record, because obviously the initial record stood for 31 years, or the previous record. Then someone broke it, and John broke it 8 days before you.
Are you having a go, Andy?
Not this week, or ever, probably. In fact, definitely. But what I wanted to ask you was, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to break your record in the future?
Oh, what a great question, because there's part of me wanting to be super helpful and spill the beans, and there's part of me going, I'm not going to tell you that. I would say I really feel like, it was a team effort, and I had a great team around me, and that's both the road crew. I picked 2 guys who I knew really well, who I've done this sort of thing with before. They both run the spine race, You know, I knew they were going to be really good. They knew each other as well, so that wasn't going to be too much conflict or anything there when everyone's tired.
Yeah.
And then the team of pacers, I was very lucky, I think, in that partly there were no races on, so I could get, you know, some of the guys. I had record-breaking fell runners running with me, you know, quite a few. You know, I was very lucky to get a great team. I do think that team is crucial, and at times they were the ones carrying my stuff and doing the navigation, doing the work for me. So I think getting a good team is crucial. I think when you're planning it, the weather can be such a huge factor in Britain. You know, there's no month of the year where we can have guaranteed the sort of weather we want, is there? So I was a bit panicky in that week beforehand. In fact, when I came to see you, I think the weather had changed and it looked wetter, but then it changed again. So that week leading up to it was quite stressful, and I almost kind of changed the date, but I knew that would be massive actually stress for me and for other people. And actually I thought, I don't want that rain than all the extra stress. So I stuck with it, and actually the weather was pretty good. There was rain and it was boggy underground at times, but not prohibitively. So I would say you've got to have a bit of luck with the weather, I suppose, and get a great team, and get your sweat test done as well. That was the main thing.
Exactly, yeah. I like the way that you ended on that. Fantastic. Well, thanks very much. We are super impressed and really, really pleased for you. I know that you don't want to be asked, and I'm not going to ask you what's next, because you do need to respect your body, recover, probably do some work as well, and catch up with all of your training plans and articles and things you've got to write. But when you come to do something else, you can always, look us up again if you need any help with anything. If we can help in any way, we'd love to. But
thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. But thank you also for your help, because I'd never really looked at my sweat before. It was long overdue. And I am I'm not quite in your category of sort of heavy sweating, but I'm above average. We found out, which I guess I suspected, but didn't really know what to do about it. So thanks a lot for your help. I think it did make a difference. And keen to carry on working with you guys.
Excellent. Thanks, Damian. We'll take it easy, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, Andy.